North Brunswick middle schoolers. Thank you very much. It is now my honor to ask the mayor of this great town, Mayor Womack, to come up and say a few words to greet us. Thank you so much for hosting us this evening.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. All of you that are from North Brunswick, thank you for being out here tonight. And those of you who are not from North Brunswick, welcome to North Brunswick. I'd like to introduce a few of our local dignitaries, I guess. Our Council President, Ralph Andrews. Councilman Will Lopez. My wife, Carol Womack. We're really honored to have Assemblyman Karabenchuk with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Superintendent of our Board of Education, Brian Zakowski. From the Board of Education, Rich Ligori and Clarabelle Cortez. You can tell I'm proud to be from North Brunswick. Beatrice Moskowitz, our co-chair of the Democrats, thank you for being here. And I'm proud to be from Middlesex County. And with the direction and the things we're doing in New Jersey and the feel of our state and the inclusiveness of our state and the things we're doing and the directions we're heading under Governor Murphy, I'm proud to be from New Jersey. Thank you so much, Governor. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you with great pride and welcome to North Brunswick, our Governor, Phil Murphy.
Thank you all. Good evening, everyone. Hey, Governor. Hey, if you're from North Brunswick, I want you to note that I'm wearing a North Brunswick pin tonight, courtesy of the mayor. I could give this one back to you. I think two of that won't work, really. One is enough. So thrilled to be here. To the Linwood Lions, thank you so much for hosting us. Let's hear it one more time for the extraordinary voices that we just heard. So thrilled to be here. This is a big gym. Wow. Beatrice, you good? What? Yeah. Well, this is good size. Bear with me. I need my glasses here for a second. So I want to talk about North Brunswick for a second. This is a community that I've been in a bunch of times over the past 5 or 6 years. Mac and I met when it was cold, dark, and lonely for me. You and your son and I had lunch, and that was a memorable, really sort of soulful bonding under a similar star moment. And I've been back a lot over the years. We celebrated what will be an extraordinary transit village in the MOU, right? Great example of the state, Middlesex County, in this case, North Brunswick, the community working hand in glove. And that's going to transform this town. Let there be no doubt about it. And on a more solemn note, I was honored you hosted me on 9/11, last September 11th, in the evening for an incredibly moving evening. And so I want to tell you it's great to be back. And I love coming here. I love coming to Middlesex County. This is here, by the way, I'm here 2 nights in a row, and without knowing what my calendar is, I may be here tomorrow as well, for all I know. So I'm thrilled to be here. To all the elected officials, to the VIPs, to the extraordinary members of our cabinet, to the great First Lady of the great state of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy, is with us tonight, so bless her. God knows what our kids are doing while we're out tonight at the town hall. Keep us in your prayers on that one. Fire Marshal Captain Jim Mudd is retiring at the end of this month, and he's been doing our town halls for a long time. Where'd Jim go? Jim, you here? Somebody. Jim, let's hear it for Jim. What a great guy. Good luck to you, pal. He's hanging his boots up, but he's a Sayreville guy, so he's going to stay in the hood. And Jim, good luck to you, and thank you for all of the help you've given us over the years, particularly balancing capacity and a number of bodies that show up, and invariably we have more people than we expect, and thanks to you we're able to fit them in, so God bless you. Any veterans here tonight? God bless our veterans. Let's hear it for our veterans. Any police here tonight? Anybody police? Let's hear for our officers who are with us, as well as our firefighters and first responders. Any educators in the house? Oh, Jesus. Apparently all sitting together. Any other brothers and sisters of organized labor with us tonight? God love you all, and thank you for having us. Bless you to each and every one of you. So, hi, Marlene. How are you? Marlene Caridi, our Commissioner of the Department of Banking and Insurance, is with us. Making a fashionably late statement here in North Brunswick. Nice to see you, everyone. Hello. So we're not here to talk about, by the way, this is an official government event. It's not a political event, number one. Important point. Number two, we're here to talk a little bit about what we've been up to over the past couple of years and what you might be expecting over the next couple of years and maybe even the next couple of days. But something unrelated to all that. Question, who you're going to vote for President of the United States. How's that sound, all right? So hold on, give you choices. You're going to vote for President Donald Trump. Raise your hand. Okay, easy. We're not getting into a fist fight here. Just okay. Any other Republican candidates anybody's going to vote for? I don't think there are many left, right? Okay, so go to the Democratic side of the house. Raise your hand if you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Okay. How about Elizabeth Warren? Okay. How about Pete Buttigieg? Okay. That was a clap, but no hand raise. I'm not sure what that means. How about Amy Klobuchar? Is that a hand or just a clap? You're clapping for all of them. Okay, I got it. Okay. How about Vice President Joe Biden? Yes. Okay. Okay. Who are we missing? Mike Bloomberg. How many Mike Bloombergs? Easy now. Again, we're not. Easy. Tom Steyer, is he still running? Anyone for him? Have I missed anybody? I did Bernie. I started Bernie. Okay, that was kind of fun, interesting. How many people don't know yet? Raise your hand if you're not sure yet. So that's also a good chunk of us. Okay, may the best person win. Okay, unrelated, Judy Persicelli is with us tonight. I'm not going to make you speak unless we get questions on this, in which case I'll need you to speak. Our health commissioner, by the way, the first nurse in the history of the great state of New Jersey to be the commissioner of health. Judy, stand up and take a bow. You got to stand up and take a bow. Come on. Judy Persicelli, right here. Again, this is unrelated to why we're here tonight, but on a very serious note, Judy's been leading the charge on the coronavirus, and it's been a whole of government approach, and I want to say that that's true about a lot of the things that we're up to. I'm happy to say we have no cases in New Jersey, so knock on wood, let's hope it stays that way, right? If you have any questions at all about this at any point in the future, dial 1-800-222-1222. 1-800-222-1222. Or you can go on nj.gov/health, I believe, right? nj.gov/health if you've got any questions about it. Again, I thank Judy and all of her colleagues in government who have been leading in this endeavor. I will give you advice that I was at a National Governors Association meeting last weekend, and we had the CDC and the whole shooting match was there from government. The most important thing you can do is wash your hands regularly. And when you wash them, take at least 20 seconds to wash them with soap, which is the part we have to add in for our kids. We have to remember the soap is actually relevant on that topic. So those are two things unrelated. Let me just tell you a little bit about what we've been up to. We campaigned for a stronger and fairer New Jersey that worked for everybody. That's what we campaigned on. And I'm proud to say, and we're not spiking any footballs, we have a ways to go. Luis, how are you? We are who we said we would be. We said stronger and fairer that worked for everybody, not just some. We also said we don't think you can make economic progress without making social progress. And likewise, you can't make social progress without economic progress. meaning what good will it be if we're growing to the sky and we're leaving too many people behind? Or alternatively, we could come up with 50 or 100 really good programs, but if we can't find the darn money to pay for them, what good will that be? We also have been tagged as pro-growth progressives. I'll take that. We're proudly progressive, but boy, we want to grow the economy and create jobs. And some would suggest all those jumbles of words are at odds with each other. We not only reject that, we think the exact opposite. We think they feed on each other. Social progress feeds on economic progress and vice versa. Fairness feeds into strength. Growth feeds in, progressive values can lead to growth and vice versa. And so from day one, we've been at it. We're on a track to the minimum wage in the state to get to $15 at long last. We have earned sick leave, the strongest law in the nation. Equal pay for equal work, the strongest law in the nation. We funded Planned Parenthood in one of the very first acts we took after having been unfunded for almost a decade. We have funded aggressively after underfunding for the entire last decade public education, K through 12. North Brunswick's been a big beneficiary. We're expanding pre-K. Another reason I've been in North Brunswick to talk about expansion of pre-K. We've made college more accessible and more affordable, including things like a community college opportunity grant where you've got people going to community college who never had a shot at going there before. And so, amen. We've opened up voting rights. With the First Lady's enormous help and lots of members of cabinet, we're cracking the back of the awful maternal and infant mortality rate in the state, particularly among persons of color, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of steps in that direction of stronger and fairer. As of now, I've signed, I think, almost 690 bills and over 100 executive orders. Those are all-time records at this point, or near all-time records, and we're proud of that. Amen. Not looking for applause here. Thank you, man. So what do we get for all that? Well, so far we've gotten, and we're not there yet, by the way, we're spiking no footballs. We inherited, in many respects, kind of a mess, particularly fiscally, and we're on a journey. And like any turnaround situation, you run most plays 3 yards off tackle every day. There aren't a lot of 40-yard, beautiful touchdown passes. But every day when you run 3 yards off tackle, you pretty soon you realize you're making progress. You're going in the direction you wanted to go. And so what's that mean for us? A couple of things that give us comfort that we're going in the right direction. We've created over 72,000 private sector jobs since we came into office. That's a big deal. We've got an unemployment rate that has been comfortably well below 4% now for the longest period in a long time. We'll take that. We've been rated as of last September at long last the #1 public education system in the United States of America. This one I think is even cooler. We're not just #1, but we're the first state, and Lamont, where are you, buddy? The commissioner gets hosannas here on this one, homage to the big man. We're the first state in the history of America to offer arts education to every single student in every public school in the entire state. Not bad. Again, we're not in the end zone to keep with the football terminology, but we like the journey we're on, we like the direction we're headed, and we like some of the signposts that we're seeing along the way. But we're not giving up. So I'll just give you a couple other things literally in the past 6 weeks that we've been up to. We created a program called Jobs NJ, which we think is a potential game changer. Rob Sarangelo is here, our Commissioner of Labor. This is to basically take the employers and what they need in terms of skills and talent that their workers or their future workers need to have, and we take the workers' skills and talent and we mesh them as seamlessly as possible. This is a big deal. I was in Bergen County today with an employer who employs 1,500 employees in this state. They're in the innovation economy. They're a big player. They're exactly what the sort of company that this is about. These are their needs. These are the skills that the folks need to have, whether they're coming out of workforce development and apprenticeship programs in high school or as adult learners, or whether they're getting an associate's degree or a bachelor's, a master's, or a terminal degree. Let's make sure we don't just have talented, smart people, but they match up with the skills that the employers need. You know, we're blessed to begin in a good place in New Jersey. Not only the number one public education system in America, we have the highest concentration of scientists and engineers per square mile in the world. That's a very good place to start, right? But we got to make sure we're matching that talent with employers' needs. So we established Jobs NJ to do that. I can't tell you, I've lost track and lost count of how many people walk up to me and complain rightfully about health care, access, cost, lack of transparency. I'm paying more every year, and I can't even tell why I'm paying what I'm paying. And so we said, you know what? We're going to establish, which we just announced a couple of weeks ago, an Office of Healthcare, Affordability, and Transparency that will, hi Barry, that will, over time, be a nice roadmap for folks to be able to literally look up and figure out what the heck am I paying and why, what are the components of that? And by the way, there are lots of components in healthcare. There's the pharmaceutical piece, there's the hospital piece, there's the insurance company, there's the PBM in many cases. There's lots of different players. So let's give people a shot at knowing exactly why they're paying. If you buy a car, we're smart consumers. You're given the information you can make a smart decision on. In healthcare, we're rarely given that option. So we've just announced we're going to establish that. We have an awful wealth disparity in this state across racial lines. The average net worth of a white family in this state is somewhere 40 to 50 times either a Latino or African American family. The reasons have been building. This is the 401st year since slaves first arrived against their will on the shores of North America. So this is not something that happened yesterday, but it's been building for a long time. So the question is, what can we do to get at that? And invariably, I'm not sure of the exact number in New Jersey, but in America, about just north of 70% of the families in the United States, their number one asset is their home. So you can't escape the fact when you look at wealth disparity that home ownership is a big contributor to that. And so that's something we're also all over. We funded Title X money. We think, hey Stacy, how are you? Nice to see you 2 days in a row. We put forward an energy master plan that is the roadmap to get us to a 100% clean energy by the middle of this century. And it's not written on the back of a cocktail napkin. Amen. It's real. It's real. And if you question whether it's real, look it up. It's 290 pages of deep modeling. And it gives us a very clear sense of how we're going to get from here to there. And by the way, it is a huge jobs spinner. Embracing things like offshore wind, which we have embraced wholeheartedly, is not just good for the environment, and it's not going to just power a lot of our state's electricity needs. It's a thousands and thousands of job spinner. And by the way, we don't not only want the windmills to be installed off our shores, we want a lot of them to be made in New Jersey, which is even better. We just announced, I'll give you one more example of just the past number of weeks. We just announced the winners of 9 different hospitals that have, and both Judy is part of this and Carol Johnson, our Commissioner of Human Services, taking federal grant money and putting money into what they call hospital violence intervention programs, typically due to gun violence, in the hospital, trying to get both perpetrators and victims help at the point of attack in terms of counseling, get them back on their feet. And it turns out the data shows when you do that, you reduce recidivism dramatically. And by the way, in many cases, the victim in one situation is the perpetrator in another one not too far down the road. And so we announced, Gabby Giffords was at my side when we announced it, an American hero, former Congresswoman. These are big steps, and in many cases, no other state in America is doing them. They don't cost a lot either. Those 9 hospitals were split up a total amount of money that's less than $20 million in a budget that's high $38 billion in our state. But you get huge impact for that. That Office of Healthcare Affordability and Transparency is a de minimis spend. The Wealth Disparity Commission, again, given particularly the ratio of what you spend to the impact you can have, is de minimis. So that'll give you a sense that we're not letting up, even though we've been on we think a very good start on a 2-year journey. We're not taking our foot off the gas pedal. And that leads me to I mentioned what may be coming in the next few days, and that is we announce next week, I announce our budget for fiscal 21. In our fiscal year, you'll likely know this, at the state begins on July 1 and it ends the next June 30th. So this is the budget I'm going to propose that would begin this July 1st and end on June 30th, 2021. So it's fiscal 2021. And I'm not going to give you the whole budget tonight. You don't want to hear the whole budget, and we're still putting the pen to paper to make the final adjustments to it. But I'll give you a couple of themes that you should expect. Number one, we'll continue an all-out investment in the middle class in this state. Okay, so we'll continue that. That's going to be a lot more of what you've already seen. So we're going to be laser focused on putting yet another big chunk of money into K through 12, opening up pre-K even further, opening up higher education affordability and accessibility. It's going to be another big slug to fix NJ Transit, which we will do if it kills me, and it might. So that's going to be another slug of money that'll go toward the things you've heard me talk about before. That's whether it's equipment or manpower to get that organization back on its feet. A big dose of healthcare, affordability, accessibility. You know, we start in a very good place in healthcare. This is the good news, is we're rated regularly as the safest, strongest, best hospital system, or one of, in the entire United States. That's a good thing. That's a great place to start. We got to keep it there, but we got to make it more accessible and more affordable for the folks who look at that as a far off reality. That can't be abstract for anybody in our state. They've got to be able to participate in that great asset. So one big theme will be continued all-in investment in the middle class in this state. And again, the words I use to describe our state when we're selling it are invariably talent and location. And that typically translates into education and infrastructure. And so you'll see an enormous amount of focus on that front. I know the educational, the superintendent, and the members of the board here will be happy with, God willing, you'll be happy with what you see. Second theme is affordability. And there's a lot of affordability stuff in this budget, as there has been in our first two, but we're doubling down even further. And when you talk about affordability in this state, inevitably, you're talking about property taxes more than anything else. What are we doing to make this place, as this great state, affordable? And so you're going to see a lot of that. I'll say this about Lamont, because the relationship between the Department of Education and affordability is real. It's hardwired, and it goes directly to property taxes. You got around the state, on average, 53% of everybody's property tax bill is going toward education, about 53%. And so the last administration, when they underfunded the school funding formula, that put more burden on the local taxpayers to pony up and put money in so that they could maintain the strength of their school system. That's how it worked. We have come in 2 years in a row with record state support for local districts, and I'm hoping we'll be able, we're still crossing T's and dotting I's. I hope we'll be able to come in with another big chunk next week. When you do that, that's a dollar from the state. That's a dollar that the local taxpayer doesn't have to put on their own back. And so that is hardwired. It's not just right and smart for educators and our kids and for our school districts. It's also a great step, direct step in affordability. I'll tell you, the other thing is we are the ultimate home rule state. You all know this. We have 565 communities in this state, over 600 school districts. That one's always a mystery to me, but it is what it is. Lamont, it's all your fault. That's not true. So the key, another big key to property tax relief is trying to find opportunities to share stuff between communities on the one hand and counties, just trying to be smart about that. Early on in our administration, I appointed 2 shared services czars, a former Republican mayor, Nick Platt, and a former Democratic mayor, Jordan Glatt. And the third one is not the cat in the hat, even though it sounds like it should be Platt, Glatt, and Hat. They have been going up and down the state ever since they were appointed. They have over 1,000 shared service agreements under consideration. That's real savings. And then you should expect to see another big slug on things like homestead rebates, senior freeze, programs for veterans, etc. So the second big theme is going to be, first one is continue the all-out investment of the middle class, especially education, transportation, healthcare. Second theme is affordability, particularly property tax affordability. Third theme, again, not new, but it's important to stay on it. Just because it isn't new doesn't mean it isn't important, and that is fiscal responsibility. You know, we inherited a state that had been downgraded by the rating agencies 11 straight times. We inherited a state that had a very thin surplus. We inherited a state that, depending on the year, by the way, both sides of the aisle on this, depending on the year, we either made a pension payment or we didn't, or we made a partial pension payment. Even under Governor Christie, his commission on why we had a pension crisis concluded it was 100% the state's fault. Because the workers did what they were supposed to do, the state didn't. Again, over administrations from both sides. So you should expect, again, without putting the final numbers in your head yet, because we're still working them, you should expect more of the same. We're gonna meet our responsibility to stand up and do what the state hadn't done in a long time, and we're now going to do it 3 years in a row and meet our full pension obligation. And by the way, I announced the budget on Tuesday. A few days later, I'm going to be sitting before the rating agencies. That'll be my 5th visit with them. And I'm not going to go there unless I've got a credible combination of a surplus and a rainy day fund. So I can say, listen, we're not where we want to be. You know, we're digging out of a big hole here. But we are on a journey, again, not just on making investments and affordability, but we're also on a journey as it relates to responsibility. Last theme, other than celebrating all that is good about this state in so many small but important ways, the last theme is tax fairness. So the real regressive tax that kills people in this state, and I hope not literally, but it probably does in some cases, is the property tax. We got to find ways to take our boot off the neck of the middle class homeowners that crisis has been building for decades. So let's do a few things to help accomplish that. And you know, a couple ones occur to me, and some of these we threw out there last year, and I wish we had gotten them done. But you should expect we may try to do that again. You know, a company that employs a lot of people, so 50 or more, and they don't give them health care. And so that means those people either don't have health care or they turn to Medicaid, and therefore New Jersey and the federal government are picking up the tab that the employer is not picking up. I don't think that's fair. I don't think any of us should think it's fair. So we want to ask the companies, the big companies, not the necessarily small businesses here, we want to make them pick up a piece of the tab. We'll continue to do our share, but or finding a smart way to get the opioid manufacturers and distributors to help defray what is, for New Jersey right now, a $100 million annual investment in breaking the back of the opioid scourge. Again, Carol and Judy in the corner, and Christine as well lives this in children and families. This is we're no different than any other American state. This is a scourge. Last year's deaths were a little bit lower than the year before, and that's a good thing. That's the first time that's happened in many, many years where it wasn't a double-digit increase. The bad news is the number was still over 3,000. January alone, last month, 280 people died in New Jersey. So I think if you're an opioid manufacturer or distributor, let's get a fair deal here where you help us defray the very programs that have led to these addictions. So those are some examples. Again, all-time, the themes are all-time, historic, continued investment in the middle class, big focus on affordability and property tax relief, tax equity without tax fairness, rather, without question. And I think when you add all of that up together, it is a package that I think folks should be able to look at, and I think even beyond any partisan lines, and say, you know what, that is a fair package. I left off fiscal responsibility. So we're making you be responsible for your own household's incomes and your assets and liabilities. We have to live that same reality as a state. So I'll leave you with the following before we throw it open to some questions, which I'm very excited to hear. We're a state that, the ideal objective for us, the holy grail, is to have it both ways. Have our cake and eat it too. And that's kind of what we want to strive for. That we want a state that delivers the #1 public school system in America. That has, once again, and by the way, it used to be not that long ago, the #1 commuter rail and bus system in America. A state that delivers the best health care in America. Save the Children ranks New Jersey still as the #1 state in America to raise a kid. That we want to continue to be #1 in physics based on SAT subject tests, #2 in chemistry. The state that is proud of its diversity. That more kids per capita take foreign languages K through 12 in New Jersey than any other state, and it isn't even close. We all want the quality of life. The reasons why we live here, the backyard, the neighborhoods, the downtown areas, the public safety, one of the safest states in America. We want all of that and more, but we want it at an affordable price. We want to make sure that we're not getting our eyes ripped out. And so that's the balance. That's what we strive for, to have it both ways. And I think New Jersey actually can be one of the few states in America, I'd put us in a very short list, where we actually can deliver that. Where you say, you know what, we have it both ways. They made it more affordable. May not be cheap, but it's affordable. There's a big difference between being cheap and affordable. Hey, Jerome. But it's also, boy, I get a lot back for what we pay. And so that's sort of that's the target zone, to give you a sense of how we see that. I call that value. But as importantly, we want to be at the top of the American class on values, not just value. And you've heard me say this before, whether it's immigration policies or LGBTQ community or women's rights and women's health care in particular, or gun safety, or the environment, our extraordinary shore and the extraordinary environment that we have, but we're the densest state in America. So you can't get a B- or a B+ on the environment. You got to get that right or not. So you want not just the value, but you want the values. And we did a couple of things, actually. I'll close with this. We did a couple of things this week that add to that list, that we want to, again, be at the top of that American class. #1, bless you, we announced legislation, pending legislation, as well as executive orders on a whole range of sexual harassment issues. How do you define an employee? How do you define an environment, a workplace environment? How do you look at the statute of limitations? Is it long enough, et cetera? A whole comprehensive, specific steps in the gaming industry, specific steps through anyone who gets a license in this state, of which it's about 8% of us have a professional license. What's the process to get that license? What's the process in the code of conduct to keep that license? Assuming that legislation finds its way to my desk and I sign it, and those executive orders happen, which they will happen either way, we'll probably be at no other state in America. And this is not just government. This is the entire state. Public and private sector will be operating under an environment that no other state will be operating under. And that was only a couple of days ago. Yesterday, I announced another set of legislation focused on ethics reform to make sure that folks, when they look at government, they feel like, you know what, it's transparent. It works for us. It doesn't work just for the insiders. It's not a special interest cabal, but folks are doing at all levels, right? So Mac has to live under the same scrutiny as mayor and the first lady here, as we do at the governor's level. Rob and his fellow colleagues in the legislature, county officials, you on what basis, how do gifts work in your life? What access do you get to bills? How long should a bill be posted before you're able to vote on it? If you leave government, how soon can it be till you're able to lobby government? We haven't looked at this in at least a decade in New Jersey. So again, those are two new ones to the list, literally fresh off the press this week. We want to be, again, number one on the whole range of workplace conditions, sexual harassment, both in government and in the private sector. And secondly, we want to have our ethical standards to be at the head of the American class. And we've got work to do on both. So that adds to that list of values. So it's not only trying to have it both ways, getting all that we get back for the investments that we make and the price we pay, but to also have a state where we say, we love the values and we love what we stand for. I'll leave you with one. I'll end where we began. You ready for this? I don't care what party you're in. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, unaffiliated, communist, whatever it is. Make sure you vote, okay? Please vote. Let the chips fall where they may, whether it's the presidential election, whether it's a local election, whether it's a county election, whether it's a statewide, regardless of what party. The most sacred right we have in a democracy is the right to vote, and the amount of folks, amen, and the amount of folks who abdicate that responsibility in our country is world-class, jaw-dropping. Let's lead the nation on that front as well. God bless you. Let's take some questions. Everybody good? Give me a sec here. Rob, see you, buddy. Let's hear it for Rob Karabinchak. Rob's name is one of them. I always say there are a few names in this state. If you can't pronounce them, you're not in politics. So if you can't pronounce Karabinchak, you can't come into Middlesex County, Beatrice. Good to see you, buddy. Love you. Okay, here we go. You ready? I'll come to you. How's that sound? And let you ask the question, but Laura Waddell, are you here, Laura, from Somerset? Hi, Laura. Can I come back to you? You got a question about health care, right? How are you? Nice to see you. May I? Do you want to read it, or do you want to just say it?
Well, I just was...
Let me hold on to that. Hold on. Go ahead.
I wondered, I know that you made a promise during your campaign to cover all New Jerseyans with health care and coverage, and I just wondered if you would commit to covering the 80,000 kids that are still left without health insurance.
Thank you for asking that. May I go back out here? Let's hear it for Laura. Well done. Laura, the answer has to be yes, but honestly, probably not overnight, realistically. So there's a bunch of different schools of thought on healthcare, as you know. One school of thought is burn the house down and start from scratch. One school is we're halfway or 3/4 of the way up the mountain. Let's find a way to keep climbing the mountain. And there are yet, I'm sure, other schools of thought as well, including some who don't think it's a right. I view healthcare as a right, not a privilege. So I start from that basis point, right? I'm largely, devil's in the details, I'm largely in that second category, We're halfway or three-quarters of the way up the mountain. Our brothers and sisters in unions here tonight will probably agree that based on collective bargaining and real negotiations, in many, if not most, maybe even all cases, their health care is something that they hold dear, and that they, when they've had the right, educators, when you've had the right to negotiate, you like what comes out. The key is keeping that right. And folks, right? So it's a right, not a privilege. The fact that we have 80,000 kids, I actually don't know that, I've not heard that number, but I take it as fact, is unacceptable. So just know that we want to get closer and closer to 100% coverage. And my guess is it won't be overnight. And if we're going to cover anybody on health care, it better darn well be our kids. So thank you for that. Okay. My favorite subject, NJ Transit. Salim Nathu. Salim, where are you? Salim, how are you? My honor. I'll return the favor only when I hear how brutal your question is, sir. What do you got?
No, my question is simple. How come New Jersey Transit really stinks? Okay, here's my issue.
How do you really feel about this, though?
Okay, here's my issue. I used to take the train from Edison to Newark. Then I had a better idea. I got a job in UPenn, so now I go from Edison to Pennsylvania. The issue is that waiting on the platform at Edison, there are all these express trains running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And you're not on them?
I'm not on them because they're express.
Yeah.
So the question is...
The real moral of the story is get your job back in Newark and stay in New Jersey.
Yeah, well, I could. If you make the express trains run on local tracks, that's going to solve a lot.
Do you live in Edison?
Yeah, Piscataway.
Piscataway. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
For a question that starts that NJ Transit stinks, I think Salim was actually quite gracious in his tone. So let's hear it for Salim. Thank you, buddy. You know, one of the things Deb said earlier, if we don't get to your question, we're really good. I pat myself on the back. Our team is really good. Thank you, team, for following up. And we will do that. And we'll get to as many as we can, but we won't get to them all. And secondly, and Salim, if there's a specific question, such as the whys and wherefores of why the ratio of express to local trains in Edison exists what it is, I may not know the specific answer to that. I'll tell you what I get. So can someone, Deb, remind me to come back there? I'll tell you what I get every day. I don't know if I have it on me. I put it in my breast pocket always. Give me one sec. Yeah. So this is yesterday. This is every morning I get a Carol Johnson, your idea. Thank you. Carol Johnson, Commissioner of Human Services, gave me one of my best NJ Transit ideas, so thank you for that. Every morning I get the printout from what NJ Transit did yesterday or the day before. So I'll tell you, this is a general, Salim, this is general, not specific to your Edison Express versus local question. So yesterday, there were 39 delayed trains and 1 cancellation. Our batting average of on-time performance yesterday was 94.2%. So I can't do the math, but we run about something like 500 trains a day. Our target is 95%. So far, on average for the month, because we had one disastrous day, we're at 93.3%. So that's, in fact, as a souvenir, I'm going to give this to you. And we love transit workers. Barry makes a very fair point. Was that you, Barry? Yeah, so listen, for all the years when NJ Transit was getting wrecked, the men and women who showed up every day to run the trains and buses and work the back shops and whatnot never wavered. So I want to give a shout out to the folks. Jerome, you got it, buddy. Thanks, guys. And so listen, one last thing on NJ Transit. Let's assume we achieve our objective when we run 95% on-time performance. But your train is in the 5% that wasn't on time. You don't really care that we ran 95%, do you? So you're frustrated. You're frustrated. I don't blame you, and so am I. So my real hope is to bat 1,000. I know that's high in baseball. Apparently, when you know which pitchers are coming at you, it's easier. Easy on the, any Astros fans in here? Any Astros fans? That you'll admit? Okay, just checking. Okay. Celine, thank you. Oh boy, I'm not sure. Asanath Dande? Asanath? Did I get it right? Have I butchered your name, ma'am? What is it? I was not bad. Okay. So you've got a question about, I'm going to hold this, about sexual harassment and ethics.
Yes, I just heard about
Nice to
your
meet you.
new legislation on sexual harassment.
Okay, so I kind of addressed this, I guess, right?
Yes, I think you did somehow.
Could you please elaborate on the new policy you put in place to address this issue? This is a major issue in the political cycles. It certainly is. What are your thoughts on the Me Too movement? Okay. And are you at Rutgers University?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you going to take a picture of us?
Yes, please.
Come on, let's go.
Hey.
Let's hear it for Rutgers. R-U-R. Luis, do you mind?
I take the picture.
He'll take it. There we go. Let me take my glasses off. Oh, you're in the picture. There you go. Thank you, Luis. How are you? What's your name?
I'm Naomi.
Nice to meet you, Naomi. Okay, let's hear it for Asanath. A very good question here. I think I've addressed it, but I would like to add a couple of things. Where'd you go, Asanath? There you go. A couple of things I didn't mention. So in the legislation, and by the way, I'm very happy to say Majority Leader Senator Loretta Weinberg has agreed to be one of the sponsors, which is a big deal because Loretta lives this, and she deserves credit. In the legislation, it also reconsiders and reestablishes the definition of both a hostile environment and of sexual harassment itself. Bless you. And there are two features of that I think are worth noting. Number one, it establishes the fact that one incident alone can be enough to qualify for a hostile environment. Whereas in the past, I think there's been a generally accepted, either legally or otherwise, view that it had to be multiple instances that created that environment. This says that not every instance, but one instance can qualify. And secondly, importantly, it does not require physical touching to qualify for sexual harassment. And that's another big break with both the past and I think in other states in America. So those are two I mentioned. I rattled off a few other things earlier. I'll give you another one. The definition of the employee now includes both domestic workers who are historically harassed and abused, and interns who are more often than not young people. Sally, how are you, buddy? So thank you for that. Okay, Ryan McDonald. Ryan, how are you, man? Want me to come to you? I think I answer this, though, right? So you got a question? I'm going to come back to you here. Hello, folks. You good? How are you? Nice to meet you.
I've actually been at a couple of these. I've never really gotten my answer or question read.
Oh, so here we go.
Well, it was actually a different question. If you don't mind, you can answer or don't answer.
But let's just say the one you wrote down here was coronavirus.
Yeah, you already
How we are prepared for biological disasters. I mean, I would just say this. We're doing everything we can, but something like this comes up, you can only prepare so much for something you don't even know exists.
Yeah, you addressed it, definitely, yeah.
Right.
I was just wondering, a different question, real quick, maybe.
Okay.
There was about, just within 2020, the last 2 months, 30 resolutions passed township and countywide of the Second Amendment resolution.
Yep.
I was wondering if you could just give us some words, maybe if you
I will.
support the Second Amendment at all, tell us what you know.
You from Hackettstown, am I reading that right?
Yes.
All right, let's hear it for Ryan. So Ryan, I've got an answer. My guess is that we'll give you mixed emotions. And I don't know, I actually say that without knowing what your point of view is. I absolutely support the Second Amendment, but I don't support those resolutions. I think we have to operate under, we have to accept, first of all, that we have among, if not the safest state. Marcus Hicks is here, who runs the Department of Corrections. I think you'd say we've got among, if not the safest states in the country to start with. So we start in a good place. But these resolutions would create first of all, I don't think they're constitutionally supported legally, but put that aside because I'm not a lawyer. is you create a Swiss cheese reality in the state, and that doesn't feel right to me. Your opportunity, whether you like me or not, ought to be if I'm running for office, you ought to either show up and support me or show up and throw me the heck out. I hope you do the former, but you have a right to do either. That goes for any of us. But I think we got to operate under the same reality. And so I got no issue with the Second Amendment. And folks, listen, when I've said I want to raise gun fees, people say you're coming for our guns. That's just not true. The gun fees were raised in 1966 is the last time. It cost $2 to get a handgun permit in New Jersey. I'm just saying, let's get a rational number. It costs a lot more. It costs a lot more to get a dog license in most communities in the state. And when they raise the dog license fees over the years, I don't think anybody's been asking whether or not they're coming for our dogs. Any event, thanks for that. Shangar Nandra from Hillsborough. Shangar, did I get that right? God bless you. How are you, sir? You got a question about property taxes?
Yeah, this is New Jersey has the highest property taxes in the country.
I've heard.
And they keep going up mostly due to ever-increasing salaries of the state and local employees. When will you take all this into account and help long-suffering middle class?
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I was in a discussion with one of the individual from the Associates of Counties, and he said that the salaries are eating a huge chunk.
Okay.
And the salaries of state workers are on average higher than what they are in the private sector.
Okay. So Shangar, thank you. Hold on. Let's hear it for the question. So let's hear it for Shangar. So a couple of premises I'm going to take exception with, and I respect the question. We do have, let there be no doubt, when we inherited this and we're doing everything we can, we have among, if not the highest property taxes in the country. And it's not enough, I think you heard me say this earlier, it's not enough to say you get a lot of stuff back for that, which we're proud of. We got to make sure we're continuing to do that, but we got to make our state more affordable. And the affordability question invariably comes, particularly for the middle class, or I was in a family, working poor family, dreaming someday to get into the middle class, and we did own a home. And my parents barely made ends meet. The key is we are the quintessential middle class state, so it's got to work, right? We have, again, the notion of public sector workers making more than private sector workers, I don't think that's true. I think the public sector folks here, educators today are taking home in many cases less than they did 10 years ago, as an example. And that includes, in Shango, that includes not just, I'm broadening also the definition from salaries, but also to include benefits as well. And so our mission has been, since we got into office, and it'll continue to be this way, as an example in healthcare, to save money, and we've saved hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in the delivery of healthcare without making the individual either pay more for the healthcare or alternatively accept lesser quality healthcare. We have fewer employees at the state level today than we did when I took office. So there's also another narrative that we're drunken sailors and we're out I didn't recognize you, General, with your civvies. That we're out there just hog wild hiring people. I think a lot. Mac, you tell me. How do you look for headcount today versus a couple of years ago? You're lower. So Mac is lower in North Brunswick. You got a lot of county level. Beatrice and Kevin McCabe run the Democratic Party here brilliantly, but I'm not asking it as a Democrat as much as Ron Rios would say if he were here, and their belt is, yeah. So you got a lot of levels of government that are really, we have no choice, right? So this is a state that's still digging out of a recession 10 years ago. We're finally back on our feet. But you should know one thing, I promise you this, we are obsessed with, committed to breaking the back of the property tax reality in this state, period. But we got to do it. I'll give you one example that's been raised with me, which is intriguing, but I'll tell you what you get back for it. Someone said to me, a couple of people said to me, hey, by the way, because I mentioned earlier 53% of your property tax bill is for public education. So a couple of people have said to me over the years, hey, you know, in Georgia, and I'm not picking on Georgia, so don't get mad at me. When you retire, when you get to a certain age, either when you retire or you're a certain age, you don't have to pay that part of the property tax bill. Well, you'd like that, right? But guess what? And I'm not saying this to be a jerk about Georgia. Check their public schools out, right? So you get there's you want to remember I said earlier we want to have it both ways, and that's affordability and delivering the stuff that we have in New Jersey. I will say this: the word increase is going to be in my final sentence, and I wish it were decrease. But you should know that our first 2 years in office were the number 1 and number 4 lowest increases in property taxes on record. So we are happy about that, but it's still increase. We want to bring it down. So thanks for asking that. Oh boy, okay. Alex, my guess is we're going to have a different opinion on this one. Alex Spielman, where are you, Alex? Hey, Alex, you got a question about immigrants or immigration? How are you? Where are you from?
I'm East Brunswick.
East Brunswick, it says right there.
Yeah. So I had a question. This is more particularly to the driver's licenses we assigned for illegal aliens, and stuff like that. My question is, how can we guarantee the security of the driver's license system, fairness, since they have to do, so if a citizen has to do 6 points in ID and an alien has to do utility bill,
right?
How is that? How do we consider it so we have everything fair?
Okay, let's hear it for Alex. Good question. You said East Brunswick, right? Okay. We're going to have to do a couple of rapid fire ones here after this one because I realize my welcome mat is wearing out. Deb's giving me the evil eye. So listen, Alex, there are 2 schools of thought on this. And I'll get somebody in motor vehicles to go through the exact, it hasn't happened yet, by the way, you should know. So the bill's been signed, but there's a public relations campaign that I believe begins in May. And the licenses are actually available to folks. The process is available in January of next year. So bear with me on some of the details because that's still being worked through. This is why I support this. Am I a nice guy? I think I am. Am I empathetic? Do I believe that we are the world's immigrant nation? Yes. I also believe in border security, right? So you could be both. Those are not at odds with each other, and I do believe in that. I want to be smart about that and do it the right way. We are one of the most, if not the most diverse state in America, so this is not just any state. This matters a lot to New Jersey. So we're not the first state to do this. I think 13 or 14 states in the District of Columbia have done it before us. And so we're Moneyball folks, we're data driven. So we looked at what happened in those states. One fear you hear out there is that that state becomes a magnet for more people to come to the state who are not citizens. That hasn't happened in any of those states. More importantly, and what you hear far more often, and this is a fair question, is what happened on the roads? What happened with insurance premiums, right? And the answer is the roads are safer and the premiums are down. Different degrees of safety and different degrees of down, but those are facts. So here's my sort of global view of this, other than being a nice guy, embracing diversity, empathy, and all that. My job number 1 is the safety and security of all 9 million residents in this state. That's my first responsibility. Back to Ryan's point or question earlier, at the end of the day, that's the hard-edged, black and white judgment call that I've got to make. And that's how I got to supporting that. So we'll see on the details as it rolls out over the next 11 months. Thank you for that. Do we have time for a couple more? Okay. Dan R., without a last name, Highland Park, and our team wrote nonprofit security. You hear, Dan? So I'll do this for Dan, although as you can see, it's a little bit of it's a longer question than I'm going to be able to read. But basically, what are we doing about non-public school security? What are we doing about houses of worship security? What are we doing about community center? I was just with some folks from Metro West last night having this conversation. We've actually done a lot. And my guess is that we will end up doing more. And we've had really good cooperation with our legislative colleagues on this. And sadly, it's a sign of the times. The rise of right-wing behavior, the rise of anti-Semitic behavior in particular, in specific, is jaw-dropping And by the way, not just in New Jersey, in America. I'm the former U.S. ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany. Tammy and I, our 4 kids, have lived there. We've seen, listen, last night, I think 11 people, including the perpetrator and his mother, were shot in Hanau, which is a proud, by the way, U.S. Army, former U.S. Army bastion in the state of Hesse. And so it is a reality that we're facing. So we've put a significant amount of money, we're up near the top of the American class at this point, into helping out to finance security at houses of worship, as I said, private religious schools, community centers. We also have a grant program that entities can apply for so they can harden their targets, and that process has gone well. My guess is we'll be doing more of both of what I just said. There's a big school of thought, and I'm on the list, that there's a big guilt in and around social media as the spark for some of this awful, unacceptable behavior. And we've been pounding away for 2 years now on an organization, by example, called Rise Up Ocean County. You had a similar organization in Rockland County, and we finally convinced Facebook to take them down a couple of weeks ago. I hope that we'll see from that specific behavioral and incidences of right-wing behavior going down and not up. I'm going to do one more for Jane. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't mean right politically, but I think a lot of people would accept what I just said as right-wing behavior. It certainly is extremist. I would. Anyone else agree with me? Yeah, it's all of that, sir. I think sir. Yep. Yep. I got it. Yep. All I'm saying is I respect your opinions. I view it differently. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you to pound sand. I respect what you're saying. So, everyone, hold on. I was going to talk about a related topic, which is not true, and maybe we'll conclude with this. Jane Miller of North Brunswick is a hometown person, has a question about Chapter 78. So let me get to you. I knew I'd get your attention. Jane, how are you?
Good, how are you?
We're in your town, right?
Yes, my daughter's a teacher, and
Okay.
she wants to know what you're doing to help with Chapter 78 to help with insurance relief for teachers.
Yep. All right, let's hear, what's your daughter's name?
Karen Burstein.
Karen Burstein. Let's hear for Karen Burstein and her mother, Jane Miller. We have, what's that? I know that. It's not only educators. But listen, the punchline is, the quick answer is this, Jane. We've supported that relief since the moment we heard about it, since the moment it happened. And I mentioned this earlier in response to the question I got about why the root causes of property taxes. And it is a fact, and I think it's more acute, Barry, with educators, in fairness. But you've got too many. I don't know, how long has your daughter been teaching?
4 years in this district. 4 years in district. She's in
Okay, so she came in just after this came in. But you've got a lot of educators, and I suspect other public sector employees who are taking home less money today than they did 10 years ago. And so, I've said this, and by the way, the folks who supported Chapter 78 have agreed with me that even the supporters of Chapter 78 didn't expect that to be the outcome, right? So put aside whether you supported it or not, even they didn't think folks would be taking home less pay a decade later. So we continue to be, so we need legislation. I can't do this by executive order. I'd love to, but I can't. And so we've had constructive conversations of late But, you know, there's a where's the beef moment. I hope it's sooner than later. We're now halfway through February, and I'd like to see this coming up sooner than later. I did mention, sooner than later, by the way, like 2 years ago, I did mention this, and I want to reiterate this. We have been able to save meaningfully on healthcare costs, both for taxpayers as well as individuals. And I hope we can continue to do that by delivering healthcare more efficiently and being smarter about how we deliver it. Carol Johnson was a big part of that. Lamont, obviously, in the Department of Education. We can do that. We've proven we could do that. And I hope we'll prove that again in the budget that we're going to unveil on Tuesday. But done in a way where you're not making the individual, as I said earlier, either accept lesser quality health care or pay more for the current health care that you have. It turns out you could do what I just said by wringing inefficiencies out of the system. The last thing I'll say, and then we gotta shut down as it's a school night, is this. It's literally a school night as we're in middle school here. So when I mentioned establishing the Office of Healthcare Affordability and Transparency, that's for everybody. That's not just for public sector employees, but public sector employees will be a big beneficiary of that as well. Again, there's nothing like the collective bargaining process. I think our union brothers and sisters would agree with that. That allows consenting adults to get to a room and beat the heck out of each other. But when the door opens, you've got a result probably that nobody likes, but everybody can live with. Bless you. So I want that office to not just work for the non-union folks around the state, of which there are millions, but I want it to work for everybody, including our educators. I'm going to give this up to Deb. I want to thank Mayor Womack, the First Lady, the Superintendent, the Vice Chairwoman, the members of the board, all the other members of our cabinet, to each and every one of you. Whether we agree or disagree, this is democracy. This is coming out, heaven and out. Louis, I love you. Thank you. You good? Is that Arby's?